Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What do we wait for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to Midweek Geek. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. There's too many Star Wars movies. There are so many Star Wars movies and so many more coming down the pipe, apparently. And I'm not talking about Solo, which has just come out. There's a Boba Fett movie in the works, apparently. And there's a whole stack more in the docket. There is so much Star Wars stuff coming out. But and I say all that to say this. Do you think I don't think that's really a 100% fair assessment. Even I will admit for myself to be just mind-boggled and bamboozled by how much Star Wars movies are currently in the works. There's been Star Wars stuff coming out ad nauseum for the past 30 years. Star Wars cartoons, Star Wars CGI animations, Star Wars animations in general, Star Wars shows, Star Wars prequels, Star Wars side movies now with Solo and everything. There's just so much. There's so much Star Wars stuff, and maybe it's because, now listen to me, geeks, hear me out. Maybe because I'm not such a huge Star Wars fan. Listen to me. I like Star Wars. I'd go as far as to say I love Star Wars. But I'm not a huge geek about Star Wars, and that's okay. Because a lot of my friends and a lot of you listening are geeks about Star Wars, which is wonderful. I'm a geek about Star Trek. I guess you'd call him a Trekkie. Call me a Trekkie to some degree. I don't know the Star Trek universe intimately. However, I don't know the Star Wars universe intimately, even to a less degree. I know Star Wars less than I know Star Trek. But we'll see how this new Star Wars movie, how Solo plays out. I didn't want to talk about Star Wars in this segment the whole time. I just wanted to open with it, but we'll see how Solo plays out. We'll see how Boba Fett plays out. They're going to make money. I have no doubt that they will make money. I don't think you can put out any Star Wars movie that is a box office tank. You slap the word Star Wars in the movie title, it's going to make money. That's where we're at right now with Star Wars. And it's basically just going to be up to the fans to say, you know what? Put their foot down. Enough is enough. So Solo better be good. Star Wars Solo, whatever the movie titles that just came out, whatever it's called, hopefully it's good, because who knows? Who knows how much even dedicated fans can take? Star Trek put out movies that fans really did not like, that didn't do as well as other movies because it was just too much. The writing was bad. The director was, I won't say bad, but it didn't fit the whole canon of Star Trek. So we'll see how long that goes. We'll see how long George Lucas and Disney and maybe Fox, I think it's up in the air. The Star Wars universe, who owns Star Wars is all, I think Fox has some of it. I think Lucas has some of it. I think Disney has some of it. It's very convoluted. Maybe I'll get into that in a later episode, but there's a lot of Star Wars stuff, and there will continue to be Star Wars stuff until fans vote with their wallets, and that's where I'm just going to leave it. Solo snuck up on me. Sarah and I went to see the Avengers Infinity War this weekend, and it was a fun movie. And there was an ad for a trailer for Star Wars Solo. I was like, what? I totally forgot that this was coming out. Oh, it's already out. Where have I been? I think it's just one of those things because there's so much Star Wars stuff. It just to me, it just kind of like it's like a run-on sentence. Maybe I make run-on sentences on the show a lot, but it's like it's all gray to me. There's so much Star Wars stuff coming out. Anyways, really, I'll leave it at that. The main purpose of this episode of Midweek Geek is to say this. Robots are taking our jobs. There's been a complaint for the past few decades that immigrants, illegal or otherwise, but let's be real when people are talking about it, illegal immigrants were going to take our jobs. Jerbs from that South Park episode. Worried about illegal immigrants coming in and taking their jerbs. But that's not really I don't think that's any, how do I phrase this diplomatically? I think a bigger threat, this is not a stretch to say, the biggest threat to our jobs isn't an illegal immigrant, it's automation. It's robots. How many vehicle factory workers have been replaced by robotic arms and robotic welders and robotic fabricators? The answer is lots. Look at Detroit. Arguably, automation and robots is one reason Detroit has declined so drastically over the past few years. Apparently, Detroit's on more of an uptick now. It kind of hit rock bottom, and now they're starting to build more stuff. But the automotive industry, when you didn't need factories full of human beings making the welds and screwing the bolts and cutting the metal, and it was all replaced by one robot who could do the job of 1,000 people or 100 people. It wasn't illegal immigrants who derbs. It was robots. All that to tell you about a restaurant that opened in Boston on May 3rd called Spice. Spyce. Spice was founded by a bunch of MIT grads, engineering grads. Their names are Michael Farid, Braden Knight, Luke Schluter, and Cale Rogers. They basically made an automated kitchen. The kitchen that makes your food from scratch, it's a robot. I don't mean like a robot, like a humanoid thing standing there holding knives. It doesn't look like a person. It's not human robots. It's just a machine. It's just a big machine that makes food from scratch perfectly every time. Although I would argue the missing ingredient that makes food actually perfect is human passion. Because food is art, and an artist is treating your meal like a self-expression. So you might get good food consistently out of this robotic kitchen, but you're not getting any of this soul. And I think the soul makes up 90% of what makes a dish great, because you know that it was a person putting his... This is the bad way to... This is not the best way to describe it. It's a chef putting his blood, sweat, and tears into your food. That was wrong. That's one of those trains of thought that just kind of, you see it derailing right before your eyes. But no, the chef has put in all his passion or her passion into your meal, and you can taste the care and the love and the joy and the expertise that went into your meal. You can taste that. It's that X factor that you can taste. So is something made by a robot? It's like there's pleasure to be taken in the inconsistency of music, or of food. Sorry, what am I thinking of music? It's the same thing with music. But that human inconsistency, the same chef can make the same plate 2 times in a row, and it will taste different 2 times. They will both taste good, but they are both going to taste great because of those subtle differences, because he can't make it the same each time. When a robot is making a dish the exact same each time, you lose the passion, you lose that X factor, you lose what makes good food great. Regardless, Spice has opened in Boston. It opened earlier this month. And is this where we're going? You know, maybe. This kitchen, I don't know if you've ever worked in food service or seen a kitchen, but there's a lot of people back there. So I will say that this isn't like a robotic kitchen that took over, that they implemented in an Applebee's, for instance. It's not a big chain of restaurants that said, okay, we're going to just make our kitchens robotic from now. So they didn't fire a whole bunch of people. to open this restaurant. It's a new sole proprietorship owned by one person or group of people. So they didn't fire anybody to build this restaurant, to launch this restaurant. But it could be a sign of the times, you know. You bet your fanny that Cheesecake Factory and Applebee's and Chili's and Landry's and Outback Steakhouse and every top restaurant company in the world is looking at this restaurant, looking at Spice in Boston to see how this plays out. Because if they can stop paying payroll for 30 people in a kitchen, what is there anything that's going to stop them from doing that? So, also in those kitchens, there will be some immigrants, illegal or otherwise. We can't get around that. But they'll be fired too. So really, it's not a people taking your gerb. It's going to be robots taking your job. The only reason I have a full-time job in radio during the week from 12 noon to 8 p.m. I work at KTRH. The only reason I'm there is because for right now, the law requires that a human being be here with their emergency alert system. If they automate that or pass a law that allows them to automate that system where it doesn't require a human being going over the data and inputting the data and firing off those tones, if they figure out how to automate that, I'm going to just swear a little bit. It's just the podcast. My ass is grass. Although I could say that on the air too. That's not bad. But the fact that my job here as a board op on KTRH during the week is not automated because the FCC requires someone to be here 24/7 to be near, around, and operate the EAS emergency alert system machine. As soon as they figure out how to automate that, I'm done. I'm gone. I try this restaurant, Spice, there in Boston. I try it. I give it a shot. But it would, but like I said, it would get boring having the same dish every time. There's no pizzazz. There's no passion in it. There's no art in it. There's no human being putting their passion into your dish. You don't taste that X factor. So how good can it be over time? That's my argument. Nissan is showing off a self-propelled, self-driving, I guess, a robot that draws the lines on soccer pitches, that draws the soccer field. So whoever was the guy who pushed the chalk lines around on soccer fields, sooner or later you'll go to an Astros game or a Major League Baseball game or whatever, and you'll see little robots coming out, 7th inning stretch, redrawing the lines on the field. The whole ground crew, in fact. Mark my words, in the future, the whole ground crew will be replaced by robots. So maybe stop worrying so much about someone coming over here just to give themselves a shot at life. What you really should be worried about, the most imminent threat to your job and your income over the next few years, is robots. I'm not telling you not to worry about the immigration crisis. I'm just saying the most immediate threat to your job and your well-being isn't somebody from Guatemala. It's a robot from Boston or Japan or wherever. Automation is what takes jobs. Really. Automation is going to take an illegal immigrant's job. Take everyone's gerbs. That's all I have to say for this episode of Midweek Geek. Just wanted to talk about the robots and Star Wars a little bit. Try to do so good in your job that you make your position irreplaceable. That's the best advice I can give you. This is kind of like Paul Bunyan versus the Machine territory we're getting into now. That old tale. Paul Bunyan was a man. Paul Bunyan, long and lean. How it went? I forget. That's going to do it this week, Midweek Geek. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, and I will see everyone later on this week for the normal episode of Geek Therapy Radio. It drops on Friday afternoon, and the show airs on 12 a.m. Sunday, or as I like to call Saturday night. Until then, subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Geek Therapy KPRC on Twitter. And have a great rest of the week, everybody.